Hello and welcome back to the SimHanger. The fact that you're watching this, chances are you're interested in flight simulation, but are you interested in VR? Do you have a virtual reality headset? Or are you thinking about getting one? Or are you just curious and would like to know more? The answer is yes to any one of those. Stick around. Today we're going to be taking a full flight from startup to shutdown in VR, and we're going to be looking and discussing the pros and cons. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell for future notifications. Thank you. For our route today, we're going to be departing from Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, and heading due north to the mining town of Kiruna. Kiruna being home to one of the largest iron ore mines in the world. In addition, I've got ORBX scenery, global base, vector, OpenLC and trees installed, as well as ORBX's Stockholm and Kiruna airports. Stockholm Arlanda International is the largest airport in Sweden and the third largest amongst the Nordic countries. Busy airport with 27 million people through its doors in 2017 and can trace its origins back to 1959. It's a busy cargo hub with DHL, UPS and FedEx using it as a hub, and serviced by many different airlines, including BA, Lufthansa and United. We're going to be using Lockheed Martin's Prepared version 4.4 today, but we're not going to be using Prepared's native VR. Instead, we're going to be using Flyinside, as it allows us to bring in documents into the cockpit and far more versatile. Weather is from Active Sky. As we're going to be flying in Sweden, I thought it would be appropriate to fly in a Swedish designed and manufactured aircraft. So today we're in the Saab 340. The Saab 340 is a twin-engine turboprop designed as a regional airliner specifically for short haul. I've chosen the Scottish Loganair livery. I think it shows the detail off very nicely, although it doesn't actually fly out of Stockholm. This model is from Coronado. It's been out for Prepared for some little while and has also recently been released for X-Plane 11. As for most Coronado aircraft, the visual detail is exquisite. The aircraft systems are modelled but not to study level. The sounds on the aircraft are excellent, and I'm using the GTN 750 add-on. Flyinside were the first team to bring usable VR to the flight sim community. Flyinside is an add-on VR application for Prepared and FSX. Flyinside loads your simulator and you're presented with the initial startup screen for Prepared. A number of other options are available and your controllers are shown as hands. Under Bindings, you can configure joystick, keyboard and yoke, switches, etc. to various VR applications. Some of them are essential, such as zoom, for example. There's definitely a compromise on graphics when flying in VR, and it's necessary sometimes in order to read the gauges to zoom in. Under Settings, there are a number of key settings to consider. The first one is Field of View, making sure that your full view is in your headset and there's no light or dark lines on the edges of your headset. In addition, another important setting is world scale. If things seem slightly too large or too small, you can adjust it. For today, I had to adjust it to 90%, for example. And in part 4, we'll be looking at the advanced leap motion settings. By choosing Import Window from the menu allows you to import almost anything into the cockpit, providing it's already open on your desktop. This is why I love flying in VR. Look at that. The level of immersion and realism is unequaled. Track IR can't touch this. Bear in mind that what I'm seeing and what's displayed on the screen are not exactly the same due to the limitations of recording in VR. Let's get the doors closed. Flyinside graphical settings will override in many instances the graphic settings within your flight simulator, and it's a matter of finding the right balance. External views are available in VR but are limited. The question to be answered is, can we have an immersive and realistic flight in VR? Gust lock off. Check that the parking brake is on, which it is. Gear is down. Condition levers and throttles where they should be. Batteries on. At this point I should be connecting external power, but for Kiruna there's a bug in the system. External power or not, the battery still goes flat. Reset the bleeds. So I won't be following the procedure exactly. Nav lights on, as we'll be starting the engines to ensure we maintain battery life. Seatbelt on. And you notice here at times I'm having to zoom in order to read the gauges, but having it set up on some keys on my joystick, I find it no problem at all. Avionics on. And the Garmin GTN booting up. Taking advantage of pop-up menus from time to time is very useful. I've already planned in our route today and we'll be departing from Stockholm. There's our route. The ESSA is our departure, our standard instrument departure, and we're heading to Kiruna. Let's listen to ATIS.
Echo Sierra Sierra Alpha Airport Information. Juliet 1220 Zulu. Weather wind 154 at 18. Visibility 10,000. Sky clear. Temperature 13. Dew point -7. QNH 1018. Advise on initial contact. You have information. Juliet.
So wind's at 154, so we'll be taking off from runway 19 right. We're going to start the right engine first, so condition levers, fuel flow on, and ignition, right ignition on, and we should see the gauges spooling up. There we go. Generator reset. Now fuel flow for the left engine, left ignition on, and again check that the engine spools up correctly. There we go. Once you've been flying in VR for a little while, I find zooming in and zooming out fairly intuitive and done almost instinctively. One gets used to it fairly quickly. Check the gauges, fuel, both tanks equal, and hydraulic pressure is in the green, which is what we want. Left engine generator reset, and bleeds reset. The big disadvantage, of course, is having to turn graphic settings down compared to playing on the normal 2D screens. For anybody interested, I will be leaving my P3D settings at the end of this video for VR. Let's set the landing altitude, which is 1,500 feet, and pitot heat on. The autocourse function allows an engine to automatically feather in the event of an engine failure during takeoff or shortly afterwards. Altitude set for 17,000 feet today, and let's have a look at our departure by importing a window. It'll be the ESSA 4 Golf departure, initially departing 19 right and then immediately turning north and heading towards the departure point of ESSA. So let's plug this into our GTN 750. ESSA 4 Golf departure selected, runway 19 right, and load the departure. Now load it in, select GPS, set our heading for takeoff. That looks set. Now putting the CTOT switch on. The setting protects the engine from over torque on takeoff and initial climb out. And that's about it. I think we're ready to taxi. So taxi light on. And let's start heading towards runway 19 right. Safety first. I better close the door to the cabin. Should have done that earlier. And we can taxi out at about 20 knots. That's our route to the holding point of runway 19 right. Set flaps to the first setting of 7 degrees for takeoff. Strobe and landing lights on, taxi lights off in preparation for departure. I won't need the wing lights, although it's icy. It's about 8 degrees, so I shouldn't have an icing problem on departure. Anti-skid on, cleared to enter the runway. Check that the panel has no alarms. We're all clear there, so I think we're good to go. And let's advance the throttles and get on our way to Kiruna. We got quite a bit of fuel on board and 33 passengers, so rotation speed today is going to be around about 121, 122 knots. Speed building up. And rotate. Positive lift, gear up. Gear coming up. Goodbye Stockholm. Some beautiful blue skies, compliments of active sky today and cloud. Flaps up. Yaw damper on, autopilot on, and we're going to set the autopilot to nav so it picks up the GPS, and we should immediately start banking to the right. There we go. As part of the standard instrument departure, we're going to loop round and head north. Just going to come back a little bit on the condition levers, just so that we don't overstress the engine and keep noise within acceptable limits. I don't need the logo lights now. They can come off. CTOT can come off, as well as auto course. That's off, and prop sync on. Just pull back a little bit on the throttles, and I'm now setting the autopilot to climb. And what climb does is it maintains a speed of about 140 knots and adjusts the vertical climb accordingly. Coming up on 16,000 feet and 1,000 feet to go to our cruise altitude of 17,000 feet. There's no doubt that flying VFR, the big compromise of course is having to turn down your graphics settings, particularly in terms of auto gen and resolution, to ensure that you get a smooth experience. But for me overall, it's worth it. And with new headsets with higher resolutions coming onto the market and faster CPUs, the VR experience, in my opinion, can only get better in the future. I quite like flying the single engine aircraft and flying VFR. And in VFR the compromise certainly is greater in terms of scenery. However, the vast majority of flight simmers actually fly the tube liners and fly at altitude, and here the compromise is not nearly as great. Well, we're now at cruise. I'm setting the indicated airspeed to about 190 knots, which will give us around about 270 knots true airspeed. As you've probably guessed, I'm a VR fan, and I feel that the compromises are worth making for the pure experience and immersion level that VR can give you. Some lovely motion cloud effects now, compliments of active sky. The other big compromise of course is cost. It's a continual battle to keep up with hardware and software innovations in order to ensure that we're getting the best experience in VR. In part 1 of the VR series, VR Guide for Flight Simmers, we looked at the hardware aspects in hardware and headsets, and in part 2 we looked at the various flight simulation packages that are available in what flight sim is best in VR. As flight simulation packages are developed, one can only hope that the built-in or native VR is improved. It's fair to say that Prepared's implementation is not the best. Certainly X-Plane and DCS is far stronger. Time to start planning our descent, and our star starts at Vegas and we're heading direct to Kiruna VOR, and then we're going to fly overhead and loop round with a planned landing runway 21. We'll have a listen to the ATIS in a minute just to confirm that that is correct, and we can plan that into our GPS. Setting our radios as well, getting ready for the approach. One very neat feature on the Garmin is the ability, using the aviation checklist editor, to create your own checklists. If you bought the GTN, it's a free download from Flight 1.
Echo, Sierra, November, Quebec, airport information, Tango, 1420, Zulu, weather, wind, 221, at 8, visibility, 10,000, sky clear, temperature, 2 point, -5, QNH, 1018, advise on initial contact, you have information, Tango.
Okay, so we've got the ATIS and runway 21 looks correct, so we will be landing runway 21 and then exiting right off the runway to the terminal. I programmed the arrival into the GPS, and there we can see the loop round and the approach, ILS runway 21. Setting the altitude now for the descent, 5,000 feet initially and then later on down to 3,000 feet. Altitude hold is off and pulling back on the throttles. We can see now we're starting to descend, and once I've reached the descent I will go into the vertical hold, and it will hold that rate of descent all the way down for as long as I want. Coming back a little bit on the condition levers as well. And I'll keep an eye on the temperature and keep having a look at the wings to make sure there's no icing. Now passing 10,000 feet, so seatbelt signs on and landing lights on. Just starting to hit the top of the cloud cover now, and cloud's fairly thick, gonna take us through to just below 4,000 feet before we get clear of the cloud, I think. We'll soon be hitting transition altitude, 5,000 feet, so setting to the airport 1018 according to the ATIS. The choice of which headset to use is really an important one, not only in terms of resolution, but if you're like me and you wear glasses, then there's certain headsets such as Pimax, Lenovo Explorer, etc., which just are not comfortable or suitable. I personally use the Vive as it seems to fit me the best. And as covered in my last video, the IPD setting is very, very important. Now setting up for the ILS approach.
2500.
That's Kiruna dead ahead at our 12 o'clock. We're going to overfly that and then loop round for landing runway 21. Kiruna is from ORBX, and in fact it's a 3 airport pack. I did a review of that some time ago, and I'll leave a link in the notes below if you're interested in finding out more. First degree of flaps and landing gear down. Degrees of flap going in, slowing to approach speed now, which is going to be about 130, 135, and then slowing to 120, touchdown around about 115. Setting the heading in case of go around. Now setting up for the final approach. Auto feather is on. Prop sync off. Seat-top on. We're lined up, but we're a little bit low, and we're going to have to wait for the crosshairs to centralize. Now on approach. Last stage of flaps now coming in, 35 degrees. Slowing to 120. autopilot off, the aircraft is mine. This is where VR really shows its strength. The feeling of height, depth is unequaled, and you just can't get this on the screen.
500.
400. 300.
Keeping a close eye on the speed. 120, we're on the money.
200.
Let's try and make this a decent one, Mark. People may be watching.
100.
Snowdrifts on the runway.
50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
We're down. Pretty happy with that one. And reverse thrusters in, slow to 60, and then manual braking. Exiting right to the terminal. Flaps away. Wing lights off, no icing. Now to clean up the cockpit, landing lights off, taxi lights on, strobes off. We're going to park at the main terminal. Shutdown checklist. Parking brake on. Let's get the condition leaders pulled back to idle. Throttles at idle. Anti-skid off. Your dampener off. Seat dot and auto Corson off. And pitot heats off. Taxi light goes off, and let's stop both engines. Let's clean up the rest of the lights. Avionics off. Bleeds off. Batteries off. And generators switch down. Seat belts and cabin signs off, and nav lights off, and door open. Welcome to Kiruna. Is flying in VR a realistic option for flight simmers? Well, in my personal opinion, the pros outweigh the cons. Yes, there's a compromise in terms of graphics quality, but that gap is slowly narrowing. Yes, there's an investment in terms of hardware and headsets, but it gets you closer to the full immersion that you can only really get from a life-size physical simulator. In the last month, there's been a number of very interesting announcements regarding new headsets coming into the market, including the Oculus Rift S, the very interesting Hewlett-Packard Reverb, the Vive Focus, and from Steam, the Valve Index. Kiruna's Saab 340, well, it's a good-looking aircraft, and it flies fairly well, and it's fun to fly. Study level? No. Yes, you can carry out all the actions, but not all the actions necessarily have consequences. But it's something I'll probably fly again. In terms of my vote, 6 out of 10, and the leading edge simulations X-Plane Saab 340 still gets my vote as the best turboprop in the market at the moment. In our final video in the current VR series, part 4, we're going to be looking at Leap Motion. This is a hardware and software option that lets you use your physical hands in the place of controllers in the cockpit and allows you to interact with your environment around you. So it's going to be interesting to see how well this works. I hope you'll join me then, and bye for now.